Hey, you are listening to What the Sigma with Chad Stacks. Today on the show, Venezuela's controversial leader gets an unexpected trip to the Big Apple, and Wall Street's big money players are breaking out the champagne. Look, I'm going to walk you through something that sounds like a geopolitical thriller, but is actually just Monday in the markets. Because what's more disruptive than a military raid that doubles as a liquidity event? U.S. military team. Pre-dawn, Caracas. They extract Nicolás Maduro sitting head of state and his wife. Full capture operation. Not covert, not diplomatic. They're now in federal court in New York, and the first question everyone asks isn't about sovereignty or international law. It's simpler. Who's getting rich off this? Venezuelan bonds are rallying. Hard. The moment Maduro's capture goes public, distressed debt that's been trading at pennies on the dollar starts spiking. And here's what I find fascinating. While everyone else is trying to figure out if they just witnessed a coup or law enforcement or some nameless hybrid, there's a whole class of investors who've been positioned for this exact moment. For years. They didn't know the mechanism. They just knew the outcome was inevitable. Maduro's government would end, and when it did, those bonds would move. That's not insider trading. That's thesis-driven investing. Also known as being spectacularly right while everyone else argues about ethics. The Vulture Fund playbook is elegant in its simplicity. Buy distressed assets from a pariah state. Wait for political transformation. Exit during the optimism spike or restructuring. It's legal. Morally complex, sure, but legal. These funds bought paper that Venezuela issued and defaulted on. Now, maybe a new government honors or renegotiates it. But here's where the system starts showing bugs. We don't actually know who's running Venezuela right now. The National Assembly held a session. Journalists were banned from recording it. Chevron resumed oil exports to the U.S. after a 4-day pause because unclear. The oil industry is operating. But under whose authority, the reporting doesn't say. No transitional government, no interim president, no military statement about chain of command. So we have functioning oil infrastructure, a legislature meeting under media blackout, and a bond market pricing in regime change, but no actual regime to point to. It's like watching a company trade without knowing who the CEO is. Bullish on chaos, I guess. Then, the crackdown begins. 14 journalists detained in Caracas, 13 from international organizations, Televen, Univision, The Guardian, Colombian teams. National Guard intelligence conducting arrests, confiscating devices, searching content. 13 released, 1 held, 1 deported. At the Colombia-Venezuela border, more detentions, video content forcibly deleted from devices. The National Union of Press Workers calls it a pattern of criminalization of journalism. Accurate. But here's the deeper exploit. When you confiscate a journalist's phone and scroll through their files, you're not just censoring that journalist. You're compromising every source they've contacted, every confidential conversation, every document photographed. It's not censorship, it's counterintelligence. And this is happening during what should be the most documented moment in modern Venezuelan history. Independent reporting inside Venezuela has been throttled for years. Authorities routinely decline visas for foreign journalists. They've deployed the greatest hits of authoritarian prosecution, terrorism charges, conspiracy, incitement to hatred, dissemination of false information. Reporters Without Borders notes that short and medium-term forced disappearances are standard tactics. 21 Venezuelan reporters arrested in just the first 11 months of last year. The information environment was already poisoned. Now, at the exact moment when clarity matters most, the clampdown intensifies. Debug mode disabled right when you need it.
My name is Tom Sachs. I'm an artist in New York City. For nearly 2 decades, I have been collaborating with Nike.
Nike running is for runners. Nike basketball is for basketball. Nike craft is for everyone else.
Which brings us back to the legality question. Multiple sources confirm U.S. forces conducted the raid, but the legal authority claimed? Unknown. Coordination with Venezuelan opposition or military? Unknown. How American troops moved through Caracas? Unknown. Casualties? Unknown. What we do know, a sitting head of state was captured by a foreign military on sovereign soil and now faces prosecution in that nation's courts. And whether you think Maduro deserves it, which, fair argument, or you're concerned about precedent, also fair, the lack of clarity around legal framework is staggering. Here's the thing about precedents. They're like code. They don't care about your intentions. You can argue Maduro ran a criminal regime, rigged elections, brutalized his population. Potentially all true, but mechanism matters. If a military superpower can unilaterally extract another nation's leader without clear international legal authority, that's not justice. That's just power. And power doesn't scale. It doesn't create systems. It creates vacuums. Nature abhors a vacuum, but markets love one, at least temporarily. Chevron's back to exporting Venezuelan oil to the U.S. Shipping data confirms it. 4-day pause over. which suggests that whatever political chaos exists, infrastructure is intact. Wells pumping, refineries running, tankers loading, because oil doesn't care about regime change. Oil cares about operational continuity, and that's actually the tell. If you want to understand what's really happening in Venezuela, watch the oil, not the bonds. Bonds are speculative, narrative-driven, but oil is physical, requires workers, equipment, logistics, security. The fact that production continues suggests either remarkable stability or remarkable control, possibly both. But here's what's missing: international reaction. No coverage of responses from Russia, China, Cuba nations with significant Venezuelan stakes. No UN statements, no OAS emergency sessions, no Latin American regional response. Either it's not happening or it's not being reported. Both options are strange. Also missing, Venezuelan popular response. No demonstrations, no celebrations, no protests, no street-level documentation of how ordinary Venezuelans are reacting to their president being extracted by foreign troops. That silence could mean repression, could mean confusion, could mean exhaustion. But we don't know, because the journalists who could tell us are detained, deported, or threatened. The architecture of this story is broken. We have granular detail on bond prices and oil exports, the financial plumbing, but almost nothing on political structure, legal framework, human response. Like reading a building's mechanical specifications without knowing if anyone lives inside. And that's not accidental. That's what happens when you criminalize documentation during transition. Markets get their data, shipping manifests, bond prices, production figures, because that flows through systems designed to be transparent to capital. But the human story, the political story, the story of who's governing and how and with what legitimacy, that requires journalists. And right now, in Venezuela, being a journalist means risking everything.
Building a new product? Temez Labs takes you from napkin sketch to the App Store. Trusted by Fortune 500s for quality, security, and speed. Book your free strategy session at temez.ai.
So here's our current state. Maduro's in New York facing unspecified charges, Venezuelan bonds rallying on expectations of undefined political transformation, oil flowing under unidentified authority, and journalists who might answer these questions are being systematically silenced. The hedge funds are making money, that part's clear. Everything else is fog, which honestly is also when some people make their best returns. You don't get exponential clarity by playing linear information games. Everyone else is trying to understand the chessboard. Some people are just watching the score. Remember, nothing said in this podcast is financial advice. This has been another fire episode at What the Sigma. Smash that follow button and tap 5 stars to spread the butter. Fortune favors the bold, baby!
Grab news. Tamez.